The largest animal that has ever existed. Larger than any dinosaur, larger than anything that has ever drawn breath on this planet. The blue whale. 30 meters long, 200 tons of living, breathing muscle and bone, gliding through the ocean like a slow-motion dream. Now here's the part that is really interesting. This creature, this titan of the deep, is descended from something you could hold in your arms. A small hoofed animal about the size of a raccoon, something that looked more like a nervous deer than a sea monster. And 50 million years ago, it made a choice. It ran into the water to escape a predator. It never came back out. This is the story of how legs became flippers, how lungs learned to hold their breath for hours, how a creature that once ran through forests became the undisputed giant of the world's oceans. This is the evolution of the whale, and I promise you, it's stranger than you could ever imagine.
Around 50 million years ago, the Eocene epoch, in the coastal wetlands of what is now Pakistan, a small creature moved through the undergrowth. Its name is Indohyus. It means pig of India. But it didn't look like a pig. It looked like a small deer. Hooves on its feet, a long pointed snout, dark eyes scanning the shoreline. It was herbivorous, eating plants, minding its own business, doing absolutely nothing to suggest it would one day give rise to the largest predators the ocean has ever known. So why do we care about this tiny, unremarkable animal? Because Indohyus had a secret. Hidden inside its skull was a bone structure that until its discovery had only ever been found in one group of animals: whales. The involculum, a thick curved bone inside the ear that helps aquatic mammals hear underwater. Indohyus had one. This tiny forest creature had the ears of a whale. It also had something else. An ankle bone called the astragalus, shaped like a double pulley. This bone is only found in articulodactyls, end-toed hoofed mammals like deer, pigs, and hippos. When scientists found this bone in early whale fossils, it was the smoking gun, proof that whales descended from hoofed animals. And here's where it gets even stranger. DNA analysis confirmed what the bones were telling us. The closest living relatives of whales aren't dogs or seals or any obvious ocean-dwelling mammal. They're hippos. Indohyus's bones were unusually dense, heavy like ballast. The same adaptation we see in hippos. Indohyus spent time in the water, not hunting, not swimming long distances, but hiding. When predators came, Indohyus did something unusual. It ran for the water, submerged itself, waited, silent and still, until the danger passed. This behavior still exists today. In the forests of Central Africa lives a small deer-like creature called the water chevrotain. When threatened, it dives underwater and hides. Scientists believe Indohyus lived exactly the same way. This behavior might seem trivial, but it was the first step on a journey that would transform mammals forever. Because Indohyus wasn't just hiding, it was evolving.
Fast forward 3 million years. A new creature has appeared. Basilosaurus. The first animal we can truly call a whale. Basilosaurus looked nothing like modern whales. It looked like a wolf with a long, pointed snout, 4 legs, still capable of running on land. You could have walked past it and thought it was just another predator, But inside its skull, the involucrum was still there, getting thicker, more whale-like. And something else had changed. Pachycetus wasn't an herbivore anymore. This was a carnivore, a predator. The wear patterns on its teeth suggest it hunted small animals. The shape of those teeth suggest fish were on the menu. Pachycetus was still a land animal, probably no more aquatic than a modern otter, but it had developed a taste for seafood. The transition had begun. 48 million years ago, evolution was accelerating. Enter Ambulocetus natans. The name literally means the walking, swimming whale, and that's exactly what it was. Picture a creature the size of a sea lion, a long, crocodile-like snout filled with sharp teeth, a streamlined body that undulated through the water like a living wave. 4 powerful limbs, not quite legs anymore, not quite flippers yet, somewhere in between. Ambulocetus was a predator, an ambush hunter. It lurked in shallow coastal waters, body submerged, eyes barely breaking the surface. When prey came close, a fish, a small mammal, anything unfortunate enough to approach the water's edge, those massive jaws snapped shut with developmenting force. Sound familiar? It should. Ambulocetus was the mammal version of a crocodile. Same hunting strategy, same body plan, same patience. But here's what made it remarkable. Inside Ambulocetus's lower jaw was a pad of fat. This fat connected to that thick auditory bone, that involucrum that we've been tracking since Indohyus. Together, they formed a sophisticated system for detecting underwater vibrations. Ambulocetus could sense prey through the water. It could hear the ocean. Isotope analysis of its bones revealed something else stunning. Ambulocetus drank salt water, just like modern whales. Its kidneys had already adapted to process ocean water. This animal was spending more time in the water than out of it, and its fossils have been found not just in freshwater environments, but in marine sediments. For the first time, whales were entering the sea. 47 to 40 million years ago, the protocetids. This is where the story goes global. Rhodocetus, Protocetus, Myocetus, Paragocetus, a whole family of whales that looked like the strange transitional creatures they were. Long bodies, shortened limbs, nostrils creeping up their skulls toward what would eventually become a blowhole. These animals could still walk on land, barely. Their legs were shrinking, their feet becoming paddle-like. They looked awkward, ungainly, like evolution was caught between two ideas and couldn't quite decide. But in the water, they were transformed. Rhodocetus had nostrils halfway up its head. It could submerge most of its body while still breathing. The transition to a blowhole was underway. And here's the detail that haunts paleontologists. In 2009, researchers described a fossil of Myocetus, a pregnant female, preserved with her unborn calf still inside her. The position of the fetus told us something crucial. Myocetus was positioned head first. That means Myocetus gave birth on land. Modern whales give birth tail first, so the calf doesn't drown during delivery. But 47 million years ago, protocetids were still coming ashore to have their babies. They hadn't fully committed to the ocean yet. But the most extraordinary discovery came from Peru.
Paragocetus pacificus, a four-legged whale found on the coast of South America. 40 million years ago, while India was crashing into Asia and closing the ancient Tethys Sea where whales first evolved, this creature had already crossed the Atlantic Ocean, 4,000 kilometers of open water, and it made it. The whales were spreading, conquering, adapting to every ocean on Earth. The whales had become apex predators, and they were just getting started.
42 million years ago, a new family of whales appeared, and they were never coming back to land. The Basilosaurids. Dorudon, Basilosaurus. Dorudon was about 5 meters long, a streamlined predator with true flippers instead of legs. Its hind limbs still there, but shrunken to tiny stubs, vestigial, useless for walking, complete with ankles, knees, and toes, the last evidence of their terrestrial ancestors. We know exactly what Dorudon ate because some fossils preserved their stomach contents. Fish, lots of fish. These were fast, efficient hunters that could chase prey through open water. But Dorudon had a problem. It was being hunted by something much, much larger. Basilosaurus. 20 meters long, 60 feet, a serpentine nightmare that looked more like a sea monster from mythology than any whale you've ever seen. Basilosaurus was so strange that scientists, when they first found its fossils in 1834, thought they had discovered a giant marine reptile. That's why it got stuck with a name meaning king lizard, even though it was definitely a mammal. Its body was elongated, almost eel-like, with a small head and jaws filled with different types of teeth, pointed ones in front for catching prey, serrated ones in back for cutting flesh. It swam by undulating its body up and down, powered by a tail that had finally developed a fluke. And inside its stomach, we found the bones of Dorudon, smaller whales, fish, sharks. Basilosaurus was the ocean's first whale-eating whale, the first mammalian apex predator of the seas. For nearly 10 million years, Basilosaurids ruled the oceans. They were the dominant cetaceans, successful, widespread, terrifying. Here's what's truly staggering. The entire transition from Indohyus hiding in shallow water to Basilosaurus hunting in the open ocean took only about 8 million years. In evolutionary terms, that's almost instantaneous. Whales didn't slowly crawl into the sea over hundreds of millions of years. They sprinted. But evolution wasn't finished yet. Around 34 million years ago, as the Eocene gave way to the Oligocene, the world was changing. Earth was cooling. Ice was forming at the poles. The Antarctic circumpolar current was beginning to flow, churning nutrients up from the deep and making the oceans more productive than ever before. And the whales? They were about to undergo one of the most dramatic transformations in their history. The whales split into two groups that would dominate the seas for the next 30 million years. The Odontoceti, the toothed whales, the Mysticeti, the baleen whales. The toothed whales kept their teeth, but simplified them. Instead of varied dentition of their ancestors, their jaws became lined with rows of identical, pointed teeth, perfect for catching fish and squid. But they also developed something new, a blob of fatty tissue on their foreheads called a melon.
Connected to their auditory system, this structure allowed them to do something no other mammal had ever done. Echolocation. High-pitched clicks bounced off objects, returning as echoes that mapped the underwater world in perfect detail. The toothed whales could see with sound. They could hunt in total darkness. They became some of the most intelligent, social, and successful predators on Earth. Dolphins, orcas, sperm whales, narwhals, all descendants of this remarkable branch. But the baleen whales took a different path. Only later did mysticetes lose their teeth entirely. In their place, they grew baleen, plates of keratin like fingernails hanging from their upper jaws like a giant comb, a filter, a sieve. Instead of hunting individual prey, baleen whales became bulk feeders. They swam through clouds of krill and small fish with their mouths wide open, filtering millions of organisms from the water in a single gulp. This strategy seems simple, almost lazy, but it was revolutionary, because filter feeding unlocked something extraordinary. Size. The ocean is full of food. Plankton, krill, small fish that swarm in the billions. The problem was always catching enough to sustain a large body. Baleen solved that problem. Once whales could bulk feed, the size constraints disappeared, and evolution did what evolution does best. It went big. The humpback whale, 16 meters, 40 tons, famous for its haunting songs that travel thousands of kilometers through the ocean. The bowhead whale, 18 meters, 100 tons, a skull so massive it can break through Arctic ice. The fin whale, 27 meters, the second largest animal to ever exist. And then there's the blue whale, 30 meters, 200 tons, a heart the size of a small car, a tongue that weighs as much as an elephant, blood vessels so wide that a human child could crawl through them. The largest animal that has ever existed on planet Earth. Bigger than Basilosaurus, bigger than any dinosaur, bigger than anything. And it all started with a raccoon-sized creature hiding in the water from predators 50 million years ago.